The HOA president called the cops on me for building a ramp so my disabled son could get into his own home, but she didn't expect this would happen next. The first time Lydia called the police on me, I thought it was a bad joke. The red and blue strobes bounced off my driveway like I was some kind of fugitive, though all I had in my hand was a power drill. The ramp was halfway done, wood planks lined neatly across the front steps, sweat dripping from my forehead. And there, just a few feet behind me, was my boy. He sat on the porch in his wheelchair, clutching his favorite toy truck, his face lit up with pride. He wasn't afraid of the flashing lights or the uniformed men stepping out of the cruiser. To him, this was just another evening watching Dad build something that mattered. To me, it was everything, a chance to finally give him independence. The officers scanned me like they were waiting for a sudden move. One cleared his throat and asked if I was the one building this unauthorized structure. That's when I spotted her. Lydia, president of the HOA, binder in hand, storming across the street like she was leading troops into battle. I should have guessed. Who else would summon police over a wooden ramp? She wasted no time shouting about guidelines, rules, and property values. She pointed at my project as if it were a crime scene. I stayed calm. I'm a civil engineer. This ramp is safe, compliant, and approved by the city with a temporary permit. I'm not breaking the law. I'm building my son away into his own home. Her smirk faltered but quickly returned. She barked about bylaws, saying rules are rules. That's when I handed the officers my paperwork. Permits, compliance letters, everything neat and legal. One officer flipped through, then looked Lydia dead in the eye. Ma'am, he's within his rights. Federal law requires reasonable accommodations like this. HOA rules don't override the Americans with Disabilities Act. The look on Lydia's face was priceless. Whatever victory she'd imagined dissolved instantly. The officers shook my hand, encouraged me, and drove off. But Lydia didn't leave quietly. She stood on the sidewalk, clutching her binder like it was her last lifeline, glaring at me with the kind of venom that promised this wasn't over. The next morning, my mailbox was stuffed with violation letters, 3 of them, back to back. Unauthorized modification, noise complaints, even one about the color of the ramp clashing with neighborhood aesthetics, as if I'd painted it neon pink instead of a calm slate gray. My son rolled up beside me, peeking at the papers. Dad, are they going to take my ramp away? I crouched beside him, folding the letters in my fist. No, son. Federal law is stronger than Lydia's binder. But in my gut, I knew what that glare from the night before meant. Lydia wasn't finished. She was only warming up. By the weekend, Lydia had escalated her war against us. Flyers appeared at the community mailbox station in bold red letters. Emergency HOA meeting. Unapproved construction threatens neighborhood standards. She wasn't just targeting me anymore. She was rallying the neighborhood, hoping to shame us into compliance. I could already hear the whispers as I walked past neighbors in the cul-de-sac. Some shook their heads in quiet disapproval, others looked curious, maybe even supportive. Lydia was counting on fear and conformity. I decided not to give her the satisfaction of hiding. The night of the meeting, I wheeled my son into the clubhouse myself, right down the very ramp Lydia wanted destroyed. The parking lot buzzed with anticipation. It felt more like a town hall showdown than a homeowners association meeting. Inside, Lydia stood at the front, her binder resting on the podium like a holy text. She had even prepared a slideshow. Photo after photo of my ramp flashed on the projector, angles so dramatic they looked like evidence from a crime scene. She'd even mocked up crude digital images of our neighborhood overrun with illegal ramps, claiming property values would plummet. People chuckled at the absurdity, but Lydia smirked, mistaking nervous laughter for agreement. Finally, she clicked to the last slide and announced, "If this ramp stands, it opens the door for chaos. We must vote to tear it down immediately." The room fell silent. And then, from the front row, my son raised his hand. His voice was small but steady, echoing across the clubhouse. "I just want to get into my house without my dad carrying me every time." The air shifted. Lydia froze, her smirk faltering. My son continued, "My dad built it so I can be independent. If that's wrong, maybe the rules are wrong." A wave of applause broke out. Neighbors clapped, some even stood, and phones shot up to record his words. Lydia's face turned crimson as her binder slipped slightly in her grip. For years, she had ruled this neighborhood with intimidation, but one child's honest plea cracked her armor more than any argument I could make. When the noise died down, I stepped forward with a folder of my own. City permits, ADA compliance letters, email exchanges with the inspector who approved the design. I laid everything bare. This ramp isn't illegal. It's protected under federal law. Lydia's binder doesn't override the Americans with Disabilities Act or the Fair Housing Amendments Act. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A man in the back shouted, "He's right. My cousin fought the same battle and won." So others nodded, emboldened. Lydia's control was slipping. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about my son's ramp. It was about years of neighbors quietly enduring her harassment. By the end of the meeting, it was clear Lydia had overplayed her hand. She hadn't just turned me into an enemy. She'd sparked a rebellion she couldn't contain. I expected Lydia to retreat after the meeting, maybe hide behind a few bitter emails until her pride healed. Instead, she doubled down. Within days, I received a final notice from the HOA. The ramp must be removed within 7 days or I'd face a $2,500 fine. It was the kind of threat designed to scare people into submission. But instead of shaking, I started gathering. Every violation letter she shoved into my mailbox, every flyer she plastered around the community, even the police report from when she called officers on me. My security cameras had caught her creeping onto my property at night, snapping photos like a burglar casing a house. It was more than overreach. It was harassment. I knew I couldn't just keep playing defense. So I filed a formal complaint with the city's housing authority and contacted a disability rights attorney. When I sat across from him in his office, he barely glanced at the pile of documents before shaking his head. "They're not just wrong," he said flatly. "They're in violation of federal law. The ADA and Fair Housing Act explicitly protect accessibility modifications. What they've done to you and your son isn't enforcement. It's discrimination. And it's actionable." So we sued. The day of the hearing, the courthouse buzzed with tension. Lydia arrived in a navy blue suit, binder clutched like it was her shield. Behind her sat a few board members, pale and nervous, clearly realizing this wasn't going to be the neighborhood squabble Lydia had promised. On my side, it was just me, my son, and our lawyer. My boy sat tall in his chair, calm as ever, his presence alone a quiet reminder of what this fight was about. When the judge entered, proceedings moved fast. Our attorney presented the timeline, the permits, the compliance paperwork, the harassment letters, even video of Lydia sneaking around at night. The judge leafed through the stack silently, his brow furrowed deeper with every page. Then he turned to Lydia. "On what legal basis," he asked, "did you demand this ramp be removed?" Her response was a torrent of HOA bylaws about aesthetics and property values. She sounded rehearsed, almost smug, as if her binder carried the weight of the Constitution. The judge let her ramble for maybe 30 seconds before cutting her off. "The Americans with Disabilities Act supersedes your neighborhood rules. You don't get to override federal law with personal preferences." The color drained from her face. She tried to argue again, but our lawyer slid forward a stack of violation notices. All fabricated, all stamped within days of each other. "This isn't enforcement," he said firmly. "This is targeted harassment against a disabled child and his family." The courtroom was silent except for the shuffle of papers. Even the board members behind Lydia refused to meet her eyes. For once, she looked small, clutching her binder not like a weapon, but like a life preserver in rough water. I knew then, the tide had turned, and she was sinking fast. By the end of that hearing, Lydia's empire of binder rules had crumbled. The judge ruled swiftly and decisively. The HOA was guilty of discrimination and retaliation. Every violation letter they'd sent was voided. The ramp was declared a permanent protected modification. Lydia herself was cited for abuse of authority. On top of that, the HOA was ordered to pay $50,000 in damages, covering legal costs, emotional distress, and the harassment we'd endured. The gavel fell, and the room erupted. Some neighbors clapped openly, others whispered in disbelief. For years, they'd lived in quiet fear of Lydia's wrath. Now they saw her lose everything in front of them, her binder powerless against the weight of real law. Outside the courthouse, people approached me, neighbors who'd never spoken up before. They admitted Lydia had fined them for petty violations, sent threatening letters, even embarrassed families at meetings. They were tired of it, but until now, no one had dared to fight back. My son listened, wide-eyed, as one neighbor said, "You didn't just build a ramp, you gave all of us a way out." Within a month, the ripple effect was unstoppable. The HOA board collapsed under the scandal. Lydia was voted out in disgrace. A lien was placed on her property for the damages she owed, and soon after, she sold her house and left the neighborhood altogether. The once feared tyrant of the cul-de-sac was gone, binder and all. But the ramp still stood. Every morning, my son rolls down it with a grin so wide it makes every late night of sawing and hammering worth it. What started as wood and screws turned into something far bigger, a symbol, a reminder that kindness isn't against the rules, and no binder of fake regulations is stronger than a parent fighting for their child. Now, when I watch him glide into his home, proud and independent, I know the fight was worth every ounce of stress. Our community is freer, our home is stronger, and my son's smile is brighter. Lydia thought she could tear down a ramp. Instead, she tore down her own reign of fear. And in its place, we built something far sturdier: justice, dignity, and a neighborhood no longer bound by her binder.